What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Dexion the Gamer, and today we are going to be going over Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So let's get into it. First thing I want to mention before we even get into our settings is do not take this game lightly. It will break your GPU if you push the settings too high, except for maybe if you have a 5090 and possibly a 4090. Because if you push the settings too high, the game will just crash, even on a 5080, even on a 16 gigabyte VRAM buffer. I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but first, what we're going to do is go over our graphics options here. So we are starting the benchmark and test at 14. I'm sorry, no. We're going to start it at 4K. And we are going to go over our settings here. So I have everything set to the... I had everything set to the graphics quality the Supreme preset. Except for this one right here. You see texture pool size? If you try to max that out, the game is going to crash. You need a 5090 or 4090 to get to the supreme settings for texture pool size. So we are leaving it on high for now. And as you can see, our VRAM usage is a little bit over 14 gigs. And everything else is set to either ultra or the highest setting possible. We do have ray tracing on the highest setting. And we are going to be starting off with native DLAA, and let me just set that really quickly here. Alright, and so we are back, and I did get the texture pool size down to medium, and I do believe that is what was giving us 22 frames per second there. Yeah, that's just man. Going back over here, yeah, so we do have DLAA. We're gonna put ray tracing on fully here, and yep, we're getting up to about 13.5 gigs on VRAM, and we are going to start the game like this. The PC latency is okay. There we go, it fixed itself. So we are at 68 milliseconds on PC latency, 32 frames per second, and this is with our stock settings. Really no need for me to go into the game just yet because we are getting a rendered image here. And so what we're going to first do is check out our stock versus overclock settings at 4K native DLAA just to get us a baseline, and we are going to see what that does to us. All right, and we are back here. So we went from 32 up to 35 frames per second, and I know that seems really small, but you have to again remember even from 30 to 33 is 10%. So I will have the percentage change down below on the screen so you can get a baseline from there. And let's get into the game and see what we can make of this here. All right, so we are moving here, and no, that's not a cutscene. That's just in-game play. So we are walking about here in cinema-like fashion. I will say the scene looks absolutely gorgeous. This is what path tracing does for the game. But, you know, look at our latency here. It's 72 milliseconds. And just Indiana jumping, I do realize that delay. You know, this is the frame rate that I used to play with on games back in the back in the 90s, guys. So yeah, I'm kind of giving away my age a little bit here, but I had I had a 3DFX Voodoo 2, and then before that, I'm not even sure what I think it was just a 3DFX chip. But anyways, yeah, I remember playing a game called Atlantis, and it kind of reminds me of this. Obviously, it's not nearly as good looking, but it's like a jungle area and you're going through it, and you really can only expect maybe 30-40 frames a second. But hey, that was back when we were playing at what is it, 640 by 480. So yeah, nothing like 4K. Anyways, So this is what we can expect here at 4K DLAA. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop it right here while these guys keep walking, and I'm going to turn on our upscaling, starting with DLSS quality, and see what that does to our image here and also our performance. All right, so we are back, and we went from, oh wow, look, this is actually a little bit playable now. We went from about what, 25, 6 something frames a second to 42 frames a second. That is an enormous jump, and that's just DLSS quality. Our VRAM went down from about 13.5 gigs to 12.2 gigs of VRAM usage. And again, that is usage, it is not allocation. PC latency went down to 55 milliseconds. That's you know, pretty much playable. You can tell the difference here just with Indy jumping. And I'll do that button test now so you guys can hear it. Yeah, awesome. So this is path tracing DLSS quality, and again, the image is really, really good. I don't see any ghosting trails. I don't see any, you know, kind of temporal issues, anything like that. That you would normally expect with TAA. This is using DLSS 4.0, and yeah, so far so good, but the frame rate still could use a bit more improvement. So what we're going to do is take it to DLSS balanced and see what that does to our image and frame rate. All right, so we are back, and now we are going on DLSS balanced and taking a look at things. We gained a little bit of a frame rate boost. Possibly, maybe. Didn't really seem to improve that much. We're about 45, 46 frames a second, maybe touching 50 now. And CPU usage is low, so it's definitely not CPU bottlenecking. Look, it just went down to 3600 megahertz on the clocks on the 9800X3D. So, yeah, we're definitely still GPU bound here. Wattage looks pretty healthy at about 360 watts. VRAM usage is still pretty high, 12 gigs, even at DLSS balanced. So the image quality is still there. Definitely no sacrifice in image quality. Ghosting, don't see anything yet, or any kind of flickering or shimmering off in the distance. Nothing like that. Very good image. And I'm just going to keep walking around here to progress the story. Yeah, everything looks good so far. Shadows look really nice with path tracing. And so what I'm going to do here, before I progress further, PC latency is still looking the same. It's about 50 milliseconds, which, like I said before, is on the better side of response time. And so now we are going to go to DLSS performance and see if we can maintain image stability and quality. All right, and we are back, and this is DLSS performance. And the first thing I will tell you is image quality is still looking pretty good. I do think the maybe the texture sharpness went down just ever so much. Very, very slight, but we did boost up a little bit more in our frame rate. It's you know, staying around 48 to 50 frames per second more now. PC latency, once that fixes itself, I think it's probably, there we go. I don't know why that happens, but so we're still in the 40s to 50 millisecond range. There you go, 51. So it's about the same. So really, you can probably get away with DLSS balanced if you just want a truly no compromise situation. You are going to get a pretty low frame rate. So, you know, I would say between 48 to 50 frames a second is still pretty low. It's playable, don't get me wrong. The evidence bears that out. It's playable. You can get a really good experience with your system latency. But let's just see what we can do to get that frame rate up a little bit more. So, 1 second, guys. All right, so now we are going to be using DLSS frame generation 2x, and we're going to go back into DLSS and leave it at balanced, just to get a good combination of frame rate there. I'm also going to use ray reconstruction to see if we can boost the image, boost the performance a little bit. And so what I can tell you now, okay, so we're at 72 frames a second. This is way better. And let's see our latency, because we definitely don't want to miss that. Okay, our latency tracker just seems to be gone now for some strange reason. I'm not sure why. But what I can tell you is it does not feel very fluid. So when I jump, it's probably around the 50 to 60 millisecond latency range. It's not as fluid as it was before, and that's because we are simply boosting from probably what, 30 to 40 frames a second. So you are getting 30 to 40 frames a second response time, and yeah, so it still looks great though. I will say it still looks great. But let me see if we can get a little bit better response time and keep our image quality the same with DLSS performance with frame gen 2x. All right, so we are back, and we are now at DLSS performance with frame gen 2x, ray reconstruction on. Everything else is set to max settings except for texture pool size, which is set to low. And let's see what we get here. Okay, so now we are getting closer to 80s, 90s frames per second. And the image does look a little, it's a teeny tiny bit softer. It's a very teeny tiny bit softer. You know, looking at the textures on the characters here, it still looks really good. And yeah, I'm going to say you're really not going to be able to notice it if you just set it and forget it. Frame time is obviously looking, you know, spaced out because we are using frame gen 2x here. And so what I'm going to do is our button test. Okay, so that's actually quite a bit better than it was before. Yeah, so as you can see, it's quite a bit better than it was before. Image quality still looks really good. So I think with a 5080, I'm going to give this my recommended seal of approval, with path tracing, full, all settings max. The only thing that you will have to do is you do have to put the texture pool size down to low. This is just not going to fit inside the VRAM buffer if you try to use high or ultra or supreme. It's just not going to happen. But from what I can see, just from looking at things so far, everything still looks good. You know, I'm not seeing any ghosting or obvious image instability problems with frame generation. And now what we can do for those who want to just max out their monitor's refresh rate, we can try frame gen 3x, and we're going to see what that does. All right, and we are back now with frame gen 3x, and yeah, this is looking a lot smoother than it did before. And as soon as our latency calms down, we'll get an accurate reading there for what that's looking like. So image quality wise, everything still looks the same as 2x. Not noticing any, let me see if I can move around. Are we getting a lot of ghosting or anything, or clipping, or any weird frame instability problems? No, I'm not seeing it. So that's good. You know, I like to pan the camera around, see if I notice anything weird with the reticle. Little tiny bit, I can see a little. It's so hard to notice though. It's a little tiny bit of ghosting with that reticle. You can kind of see the frame. Yeah, the frame before, the frame afterwards, just kind of moving the reticle a little bit, and you see like a ghost of it. But besides that, I would say that this is really good performance. And, you know, at frame gen 3x, you probably are going to be quite satisfied with the motion fluidity. I'm not going to call it frame fluidity because it's obviously synthetic frame rate, but the motion fluidity is very good. Frame time is about 24 milliseconds, and our latency is still acting all weird, and I don't know. So I really would like to see what that looks like, but if it's not going to do it, then it's just not going to do it. There's really no other way for me to look at the latency except by the seat of the pants and just doing the button mash test. It feels about the same as it did with frame gen 2x. So we're getting about 115, 120 frames a second here, and we are going to see what that does on frame gen 4x. Oh boy. Now, before I put it back to frame gen 4x, I do want to just let you guys know that PC latency did snap in for a moment. For some reason, when I get back to in-game, it borks out, but it was at about 30 to 40 milliseconds, which I'm going to call that a win for frame gen 2 and 3x. So let's go back to 4x, see what that does. All right, and we are back, and yeah, we are definitely filling out that refresh rate. And just so you guys know, I am no longer using DLSS to get 4K content. I am on a 4K monitor now, so there is no overhead with the AI scaler downsampling the image from the render. So this is pure 4K right here. So frame gen X4, I can definitely see. Yeah, I still see that same reticle thing. I'm starting to notice a little bit more clipping as well. So I would stay away from 4x frame generation for this title. Yeah, just spinning the camera around real fast, I can see frames kind of blending in with each other and looking a little blocky there with certain images. A still image is great, obviously. It's not moving around too much, but once you start moving around, really, you know, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's definitely clipping. So I would probably stay away from frame gen 4x and keep it at 2 or 3x at the most. You know, if you guys don't mind sub 100 frame rate, 2x is probably going to be my ideal. And again, this game is the ball buster game. It breaks everything except the 5090. So with a 4080, you can still get away with maxed settings, path tracing max. If you turn down the texture pool size to medium, use DLSS performance 4.0, you still get rich texture quality, rich image stability, and you get a pretty good frame rate on top of that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go down to 1440p and check out our results there. All right, so we are back, guys, and we are at 1440p now using DLAA. We didn't touch any other settings, still full ray tracing, and we are going to see what that can do. And just to note, the PC latency is now at about 56 milliseconds. And we're just starting that opening scene again, where the guys are just walking into the jungle area here. So we are about 35-ish, 36 milliseconds, and this is our stock settings. And what I'm going to do is, don't want to pause it, that stops the rendering. So what I'm going to do is, first observations is, as far as sharpness and detail quality, the game is just rich in path tracing that it really does hide any kind of, you know, imperfections that you might see going down to 1440p from 4K. That's what path tracing does. Path tracing is basically the future of gaming as far as photorealism. The only thing is that it just cripples GPUs. It takes so much mathematical power in order to run smoothly. We just don't have that type of power available to us with the current node process and the current silicon capacity without making GPUs the size of iPhones. And if a GPU is the size of an iPhone, it's probably going to take up as much energy as a car. Like, I'm not even joking about that. Or we're talking about something like 6,000 watts, you know, it's something crazy like that. All right, so we're at the same image as we were before. And our latency is 60 to 70 milliseconds. Here's a jump. Yeah, so that's about the same as what I was getting with the frame gen on 4K. Image stability, still looking pretty good. So let's smooth out this frame rate, and we're going to start with our overclocking settings. Let's get into that. All right, so we went from about 32 frames a second to roughly 36. 35, 36, I'll just call it 36. And our PC latency did improve ever so slightly, so that's another plus as well. And, you know, that's also something that overclocking can do for you. It can improve your response time. So, you know, with the 5080, this thing is a beast at overclocking. It really does do some pretty decent numbers. So I will have the 32 to, looks like we touched 30, yeah, let's just say 32 to 36, and I'll have the percentage improvement down below. And like I said before, you can look at the game like this, and it's actually cool from a cinematic perspective because this looks like a movie, kind of, sort of. But we don't play movies with RTX 5080s, right? Okay, so let's go through the settings again, and we're going to first enable DLSS quality, and we'll start from there. All right, so we are back, and yeah, we went from 37 to now we are jumping up to about 55 frames a second. We are just now at the border of smoothness. 60 frames a second would probably be a great target, but everything looks good. It still looks really good on 1440p. I just noticed an ever so downscale in sharpness when it comes to 4K, ever so small, I should say. So latency is really good. 43 milliseconds is really snappy. I would say that that's where you ideally want to be as far as single player titles that are graphically demanding, such as this. And again, this is with full path tracing. So what we're going to do is take it down to DLSS balanced at 1440p and see what that can give us. All right, and we are back now, and now it looks like we are getting about 60 frames a second, so that's looking a lot better. And image quality is still good. Yeah, you can kind of look at the trees a little bit and tell that it's not quite as sharp as 4K. But, you know, sometimes you do have to make compromises when it comes to a ball-busting game like this. So, yeah, 63 frames a second, that's great. And now I would probably just keep it at DLSS balanced on at the lower end of upscaling, because then you will really start to notice that softness and rendering with performance and even ultra performance, because we are at a lower native resolution now. So what I will do is I will activate frame generation on top of this right here and see what that does to our image and stability. All right, and we are going to start with the 2x mode here for frame generation. Nothing else changed. We're keeping it at DLSS balanced, and let's see what that does. Okay, so now first thing I will note is I can tell a small drop in the softness, the sharpness, I should say, as far as our image. And that is to be expected when you do activate frame gen. Usually on 4K it's not noticeable, but on the lower resolutions you can start to see it. And it's not game breaking, but I can tell that it's there. You know, and I am pretty close to the screen, I will say that. I am not an arm's length away right now. So that's most likely why I'm able to see it. If I sit further away, let me see. Yeah, if I sit further away, it does get much harder to notice. I am a little bit biased because I see it, so it's kind of hard for me to unsee it. But besides that, frame generation did activates a lot of frame smoothing here, so we are looking at 103 frames a second now. For some strange reason, my latency just, I don't know why, it just doesn't want to activate. But just from the seat of the pants feel, probably in the 30 to 40 second latency millisecond range, which I would say that's good because that does feel good as far as reaction time. Just looking up at the leaves right here, I can tell it's, we're not at 4K anymore. So it is looking a little bit softer, but hey, that is what you can expect, going to 1440p. So I would call this if you want to max out your game and settings, this was probably ideal. What I would say, 106, 111 frames a second, frame gen 2x, and as I rotate the game around here, I can't see that reticle ghosting anymore. So yeah, that's perfect. I would definitely keep it here, but just for the sake of information, let's see what frame gen 3x can do. Alright, and our PC latency was at around 30 milliseconds before it just bugged out. So take that for what it's worth. And now with frame gen 3x, I don't really notice too much more as far as softness goes. It looks about the same as 2x. And let me see if I can see that weird ghosting that was there before. Yeah, I am starting to see that now with frame gen 3x. And it's very, very slight, but I can see it. And it's super slight. You probably aren't going to notice this. But with that being said, we are looking at 146 frames per second now, which is great it's great motion smoothness. This looks good, just moving around the grass, jumping around and everything. I'm not noticing any ghosting with the textures here or my screen. I'm not noticing any shimmering effects or any kind of weird stuff going on, like with the trees out in the distance there, or even this leaf falling to the ground. Yeah, that's all good stuff right there. So that would be my go-to for 1440p if you want the path tracing options to stay on. So I'm going to take it back to 4K and just kind of maximize, or I should say optimize the settings here. And I'll meet you there. Alright, so we are back, and we are back at 4K DLSS performance, and this is definitely a sharper image than even DLSS quality at 1440p. So what I'm going to also do is take a look at what difference ray tracing ultra, which is path tracing, makes versus high. So we're going to get into that now. All right, so we are at full ray tracing, which is path tracing. And we're going to start from this image here, and we are at 87 frames per second. And again, this is, let me just make sure I have frame generation. Okay, so that is frame gen on. So let me just turn frame gen off, just to get a baseline here. Okay, so there we go. 49, 50 frames a second. This is with the path tracing setting, and that is with ultra. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go, excuse me, go down from full ray tracing to ray trace high, which is going to give us a little bit more frame rate. So yeah, so we did get a little bit of a frame rate boost there. Not really all that much. Yeah, I mean, not really all that much. So, and I can't really tell the difference as far as image quality. So, let's see what we can do going down a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to take now that down to medium, and I see that kicked off our reflections. So RT reflections does get kicked off, and so does indirect illumination. Okay, that was always off. Anyways, so we're at path trace medium now, and yeah, see, this is the huge jump in frame rate. So when you put path tracing down to medium, or ray trace medium, I should say, that does put things in a much better position in 4K. So now we're at 63 frames per second. And you can just kick on frame gen here and just leave it as it is. So can you guys tell a difference from the ultra setting with path tracing? Let me just play with this a little bit here, see if I can. Okay, so we're back to high. I don't know, you guys. Can you really tell a difference here? There's probably a difference if you know, I really can't tell too much of a difference here. So, you know, sometimes you do have to optimize your settings even at the high end. And this is again with ray tracing on the medium. Now what I'll do is I'll just turn it off. Well, you can't turn off ray tracing in this game. Okay, so now this is path tracing off. So let's see. Okay, yeah. So that's definitely look at the frame rate. It jumped up to the 132, 125. Okay, so this is with path tracing off, but yeah, this you can kind of tell the shadows are not accurate as far as the sunlight here. And let me just move around a little bit more. Well, maybe that's because the sun isn't really shining here. But, you know, to each their own. I would still say that this looks pretty good. It just isn't photorealistic good. So you can play the game like this as well. This is what it's going to look like. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it at path tracing medium just to get the best of both worlds. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I can't really tell the difference too much between medium and high and ultra. Well, the sun is there now, so, you know, I don't know. Maybe the PT offsetting was decent as far as the reflections going. I'm sorry, not the reflections, the shadows. But this looks a lot more... Yeah, it does look more realistic for sure. Yeah, so I just put it back to high, and I can't really tell too much of a difference here. Looking at the shadow of the leaves, this tree right here that's really focused in. If you can see the shadow of that tree right here, yeah, that looks really good. Going back down to medium. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just actually in the menu, just looking at the difference in quality, and well, the only thing I'm really seeing is maybe it just looks a little bit more sharper or something. I don't know. So okay, so when you do have full ray tracing or path tracing, you do get the ray trace indirect illumination. Not even 100% sure what that means, but it doesn't really affect the frame rate. I just lost 2 frames a second there. So anyways, I'm just gonna leave it on full. You guys can play with that, you know, if you want to. It's gonna be hard to tell a difference, but just for the sake of this video, I'm gonna leave it at full. I'm gonna kick on frame gen 2x here, and we're just gonna enjoy some gameplay. Thanks again for watching, guys, and for bearing with me here, going through all those settings and figuring out the optimal performance. And let's just enjoy the game for now.
Watching us. Bobitos don't like intruders.
Relax.
easy to make a wire on Ovito land.
This was Forrestal's favorite.
Why did they leave these things behind?
I think they were intent on coming back.
Ovitos are near. Poison is still fresh, 3 days. They're following us.
If they knew we were here, they would have killed us already.
Don't want to spend the night in the jungle. This is the jungle telling us to turn back.
Go on, senor. Satipo will help you move the tree.
Move. The temple is up there, senor.
This is it. This is where Forrestal cashed in.
Friend of yours.
A competitor. He was good. He was very, very good.
Senor, nobody has come out of there alive. Please.
first, senor. Senor. Get them off me.
Stop. Stay out of the light. Forrestal.
You said he was very good.
He was. Just not good enough.
Are you?
I guess we'll find out.
Go far, crazy, senor. Let us hurry. There is nothing to fear here.
That's what scares me. That did it.
Really? Shouldn't do that again.
That's it.
Give me the whip! Give me the whip!
No me de idle.
Give me the whip!
Adios, senor.
Adios, vida. American. Still an American.
Man I knew 10 years ago. I learned to hate you in the last 10 years. Where the hell were you? Damn it, don't you leave me down here by myself!
Marcus.
What's that exit? It's like a labyrinth.
Wait. What the devil?
All right, that's going to be it for now, ladies and gents. Thank you so much for spending that time with me. Please like and subscribe. I am going to be shooting out more and more content, and definitely want to, get more eyes on this type of content. Whoever can get value out of it, and let me know your thoughts.